Now we will look at a new small topic, participle. Now, what is a participle? A participle is a word which is partly a verb and partly an adjective. It's partly a verb and partly an adjective. And under this participle, we have three categories. We have present participle, past participle, and perfect participle. Present, past, and perfect. So, participle is partly a verb and partly an adjective. Now, when you go through the exercise, we will grasp and we will understand better. So, the participle. The participle. Now, I'll give you few sentences for you to understand. I saw Ram playing football. Let's look at that. I saw. I saw Ram playing. I saw Ram playing football. I saw Ram playing football. She told us an interesting story. Okay? She told us. She told us an interesting story. And then I have, hearing the noise, the boy woke up. Hearing the noise. Hearing the noise. Hearing the noise, the boy got up, or the baby got up. The boy got up. Now, we have three sentences here. So, we are doing the participle. What is a participle? A participle is a verb and partly an adjective. It's partly a verb and partly an adjective. Now, I have three sentences. Let's look at them. I saw Ram playing football. Participle is partly a verb. What's the verb here now? Playing. We have here one word, playing. I saw Ram playing football. She told us an interesting story. Interesting. She told us an interesting story. We said participle is partly a verb, partly an adjective. When you say here, story, what kind of story? Interesting story. So here it is like an adjective and here it's a verb. Hearing the noise. Hearing the noise. The boy got up. Hearing, that's a verb. So we are talking about participle being partly a verb and partly an adjective. Okay, so we say a participle. A participle is a word. Participle is a word which is partly a verb partly an adjective, and partly an adjective. That's very important for us to know. Partly a verb and partly an adjective. In the first one we have, I saw Ram playing. So here when you say playing, it's a verb. But here she told us an interesting story. Interesting comes as adjective, describing. What story? Boring story? Interesting story. So when a participle is it can be a verb or it can be an adjective. Now, let's look at these sentences very carefully. In these sentences, playing, interesting, and hearing. Let's look at the three words. Playing, interesting, and hearing. They are formed from the verbs play, interest, hear. So how are these words formed? From play, playing, interest, interesting, hear, and hearing it came. So we have three. These words, play, interest, hear. From these we have formed the word playing, interesting, and hearing. They qualify the nouns. Now, they qualify the nouns football, story, and the boy. So we got the verb, and those verbs are qualifying what? Qualifying to playing. What kind? Football, interesting, story, hearing. Who's hearing? Who's listening to the boy? So qualifies the nouns ball, story, boy. There are three nouns here. Football, ball, story, boy. They're qualifying that. Okay. Now, they qualify the nouns football, story, boy, just as an adjective does. So we said playing is a verb, but because it is qualifying football, like an adjective, it also does the work of an adjective. Therefore, playing, interesting, and hearing have the characters both as a verb and as an adjective. Therefore, we say it's partly a verb and partly an adjective. Such words are called verbal adjectives or participles. So such words are called verbal adjectives or participles. So we say playing, interesting, playing, interesting, and hearing. Playing, interesting, hearing. We say such words are called verbal adjectives. Such words are called. Such words are called hearing, interesting, playing. Such words are called verbal adjectives. What we call verbal adjectives. Verbal adjectives or participles or participle. Okay, now we said playing, the verbs, playing, interesting, hearing, qualify the nouns, football, story, and the boy. Okay, so they say it is almost doing the work of a verb and an adjective. And therefore, such words like playing, interesting, and hearing, they are such words, we call them as verbal adjectives or participle. What is a participle? A participle is a word which is partly a verb, partly an adjective. So this type of words, are called verbal adjectives. So playing, interesting, and hearing are verbal adjectives or participle because it does the work of a verb and acts like an adjective too. Okay. Now, in the participle, we have three categories. We say present participle, past participle, and perfect participle. So there are three kinds. Okay? We say we have three kinds of participles. Three kinds of participles. We have three kinds of participle. And the first one is, number one, we have, first is the present participle. First participle, the present participle. And the second one we have is past participle. The past participle. And then we have the third one is perfect. The perfect participle. So we have three different types of participle, and each one will do it as we do, you will learn. So what is a participle now? A participle is a word which is partly a verb, partly an adjective. So it does the work of a verb and an adjective. Now we have three sentences. Playing, in that we have three verbs there. Playing, interesting, and hearing. But it does the work of a verb and acts like a adjective. Therefore we call them verbal adjectives. The verbal adjective or the name is participles. In the participle, we have three categories: present participle, the past participle, and the perfect participle. Each one, we will do it in detail for you to grasp, for you to understand through various exercises.